Welcome back. In recent years, games like Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, DCS, and Microsoft Flight Simulator all have had large updates and continue to gain popularity, perhaps due to work-from-home culture that we've adopted. And that's great because flight simulators have typically been a kind of niche area of gaming, where half of your gaming is playing the flight sim and then half of your game is setting up your flight sim. And not everybody's into that. It can take hours sometimes to set up your components and dealing with little fiddly things like USB controllers, not having enough bandwidth to deal with all the buttons. Weird things happen in flight sims and there's tons of forums. If you've been around, you're familiar with that kind of thing. What I wanted to talk about in this one is these rudder pedals. These are my original Saitek Pro flight rudder pedals that I got in 2011, so they're over 10 years old, and I've used these on and off throughout the past 10 years with the X52 setup to play things like Microsoft Flight Simulator. And they've been fine. It's not super realistic, at least from what I understand, but they are cool and it allows you to get a little more immersion into the game. And I wanted to discuss the differences between this and the MFG Crosswind V3. Now, those are completely different class of rudder pedals, but the reason why is because I used these rudder pedals for 10 years. And I made the jump to go up another price bracket to look at something much better so I could really ask the question, is it worth spending $100 versus $300 on rudder pedals? Something that you don't really use too much for super fine control. As far as functions go, they're pretty much the same. They have the 2 axes and toe brakes. So we'll open up the MFG Crosswinds, we'll take a look at them, and then I'll set them up and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. So these are the MFG Crosswind V3s. Now MFG is an interesting company. It's a guy, his name is Milan, and he's been a flight sim enthusiast around the forums for quite some time. And MFG stands for Milan Flight Gear. It's his own company and he makes these and ships them out of Croatia. Shipping was about 5 days and DHL shipping was not super cheap. It was about $50 USD to get them shipped from Croatia to the east coast of the United States. And we'll go ahead and take a look at these, and I have not seen them yet. Okay, so he comes with a USB 2.0 cable included, and this looks like the standard printer kind of cable, like a printer cable connection. It's a Type A to Type B. So he gives you one, but these are relatively cheap. Just don't go to Best Buy and buy one of these. You'll get charged an arm and a leg. Now I'll have to take a look at the instructions, but this looks like all of the components you need. A couple cams, a couple bolts, an Allen key, and a big spring. So it looks like he actually 3D prints the pedals. I wasn't expecting that, but that's fine. It looks like they've actually done a pretty good job, and I've done a little 3D printing myself, and they're printed pretty well. You could tell he took his time to make a decent design on them. I would have preferred if they were a non-PLA material, or if he didn't charge you an extra $30 for the pedals and instead maybe charged you $10 for the file so you could just print it yourself if you wanted. That's okay. So here are the rudder pedals. Obviously you would mount your foot pedals here, and I've got the universal combat style, so heels on the floor type of pedals. And they mount directly onto these springs, and there's a cam here in the front, and that's what gives you resistance. So we'll mount the little bar, the spring, and get these set up. All right, now we're looking at what we've got included. Okay, here we have the rudder pedals and the pieces that come included. These are spacers. Those really just go at the end here, and we'll let you put it up against a wall at the distance you'd prefer. We need these 4 bolts for the spacers. Those will go there. This is a different cam profile. You could read the manual and see if you would prefer a different cam profile, but that's what that's for. There's one already installed. We'll use that first to see what it's like. And then we have the spring and rod. So the way this works is pretty simple. It's got this little cap on it. We go ahead and unscrew it and slide one end of the spring through the screw, and then the other end is going to eventually go around the hook here. And the way we do that first is by threading this through the hole. And once it's through the hole, we use the little threaded screw to hold it in place. And then the cap. And really that's it. You use this to adjust the tension by tightening it down to tighten the tension that's on the pedals. And that's it. And like I said, the spacers here simply go at the end here with these bolts that are provided. And if you have the other pedals, you'll have longer bolts, but you want to use the short ones here. And that's how you can get it placed away from the wall. I'm not going to use these. They'll actually be mounted to another kit. But that's the assembly. It's very, very simple and straightforward. Okay, and this is a 4mm Allen key. That's what he provided here for the 3D printed pedals. And we'll go ahead and add those. One thing I want to be careful about is tightening these too much. They are just 3D printed, so there's a good chance they can't really take too much force if you're torquing down on them. That's them fully assembled, and I'll go ahead and put the spacers on here so that I can get them side by side with the spacers that are on the Saitek pedals, and that'll let me switch back and forth between them pretty easily. So I've got the two rudder pedals set up side by side because I really wanted to feel them for the first time on camera. These I would usually fly with just the balls of my feet on the edge, and you're kind of like putting your feet right here on this ridge. Super not comfortable. I mean, they're obviously designed to have your full foot on there. So not great, but you can adjust the tension on these. I have always left it pretty loose, but it's kind of grindy. It kind of like jerks through the middle. They're not great, not good for small movements. Now with these, I would ride them with my feet, heels on the floor, and I would kind of ride them like this, and that feels much smoother. You definitely can tell that these are mechanically different, and in a good way. It has the spring, it feels pretty linear between the left and the right, and I do appreciate that. And then when you get on the brakes, same kind of thing. Even though your heel comes up, you're still able to hit the brakes. So ideally, you want to be able to use your brakes and rudders at the same time. Say if you have nose wheel steering, or if you needed both brakes in a turn, you usually wouldn't do that in a plane, but it does make sense that you may want to do that in a sim. The other thing is this PLA material is very, very slippery on socks. It doesn't have the grips that these do, so that'll contribute to the experience a little bit. Truthfully, I don't know how much the full foot pedals were, but I don't like them, and that's why I didn't get them again. Okay, back for final thoughts. I played with them a little bit, and they're fine. There's no issue with the software. Everything works out of the box, basically. There's no kind of wobble like the Saitek pedals kind of judder once you go through the center and then they wobble back and forth. There is a little bit, but it's not noticeable, especially when your feet are on them, and you can increase the tension to reduce that frequency of the wobble. The toe brakes, they work. I like the angle and the position. You can adjust the tension of the toe brakes as well. So that's pretty cool. And overall, I think the build quality is pretty nice. They're solid. They're very expensive for rudder pedals. Otherwise, I think these are a good set of pedals, not necessarily a value buy. If you're looking for value pedals, get the Saitek Pro rudder pedals. Find them on eBay for $100 if they work. That'll be better than nearly anything else you're going to get up until you get to the $300 price range. And then you can start looking at either these or the Virpil Aces. They're going to be very similar, mechanically a little different, but they perform very similar. So that's my thoughts of the MFG Crosswind version 3 rudder pedals. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.